Welcome to the virtual Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lake Norman. Our fellowship walks diverse paths to find meaning and purpose, but we are united by our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all, and the obligation to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. We are an open and inclusive liberal faith community. All are welcome regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, or economic status. My name is Nancy Embry, and I've been an active member of this congregation since 2015. We light our flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In the search for truth, may we be just, and in justice, may we be loving. I am pleased to introduce our minister, Reverend Pat Jobe. We are excited to have Pat preaching today because this is the first Sunday that he has joined us as our official pastor. Pat comes to us with a wealth of experience as a minister and a leader in his community. He has a passion for helping people and a warm heart. Pat has chosen our reading for today from the Desiderata, written in 1927 by Max Ehrman. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace. And whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. The title of Pat's message today is Off the Couch, Into the Street, Social Action with Social Distancing. How do we strike up that dance band? And now, Pat Jobe.
The first thing I want to say is that Tracy Grimm had a comment on my hair at a recent board meeting. She said, Reverend Jobe, pat your hair down. I said, Tracy, this is the way my hair looks. She said, have you been out in the wind? The reason this is particularly funny to me is because some of the folks in the congregation have started reading my book, 365 Ways to Criticize the Preacher. And hair is definitely an issue in that book, which I wrote 20 years ago, which was published 20 years ago. I actually wrote it 21 years ago. Congregations grow because people practice radical hospitality and honest, loving relationships, which make a house of worship a place worth going to, or in our current crisis, a website worth visiting. You have heard it all your lives. The only thing that ultimately matters is how we treat each other. This we're doing right now is not something we often do. Yes, for some of us, once a week feels fairly regular. But compare it to other activities: basic hygiene, preparing meals, going to bed at night and waking up the next morning. To be together like this, to listen to a speaker, even an online speaker, for a few minutes is not quite ordinary. It's a special moment set aside for a special purpose. So what do we expect? What are we doing here? Laughter is high on some people's list. A donkey, a giraffe, 2 parakeets, a defense attorney, a Catholic priest, and a Baptist preacher walk into a bar. The bartender looks up and says, "What is this, a joke?" But what else are we looking for? Do we dare hope to be changed? I do. I want to give up. I want to up my game of speaking and leading. I want to lose weight and get more exercise. I have all kinds of goals for self-improvement. And it is humiliating to admit that some of them are 40 years old. Do we hope to be reassured? The world beyond this video may be insane and self-destructive, but can we at least find enough common ground with like-minded people that for this time on this website and trust that it will build community? I think that's a definite yes, especially for most UU congregations. We may not be perfect, but at least we can associate with good-hearted, liberal, progressive thinkers who don't bray like jackasses and make fools of ourselves most of the time. So is that it? Is that the list? A little laughter, a little hope of self-improvement, connection with like-minded people, and then push the buttons and click the cursor and move along to something else on our computers. No, that can't be the whole list. The best instruction is to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with whatever we perceive to be ultimately the most high in the universe. Many of you recognize that's a parody of the prophet Micah, imploring us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. Many UUs immediately start turning in circles when they hear the word G-O-D. But all of us have something beyond ourselves to which we cede power, be it logic, reason, or random chance. I once alluded to the flying spaghetti monster, and I had a gentleman in the congregation start nodding when I mentioned the flying spaghetti monster. And then he told me after the service he has a flying spaghetti monster bumper sticker on his car. I want to inspire and amuse. I want to lay down some ground rules for our time together. I want to be clear with you that I do not have a high opinion of my own worth, except the worth I share in common with all of you and all other creatures in our interconnected web of all existence of which we are a part. Now that was a long sentence, so I'm going to say it again. I do not have a high opinion of my own worth, except the worth I share in common with all of you, and all other creatures in our interconnected web of all existence, of which we are a part. We are all collectively of infinite and eternal worth. Separately, not so much. My second wife married me, I think, because I told her she was of infinite worth. I believe we are all of infinite worth. That's why I asked Nancy Embry to read part of the Desiderata at the beginning of this service. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. Oh, really? What could that possibly mean? It means, in part, we would die for each other. We all know stories of perfect strangers who risked their lives and lost their lives to save someone else. We all know stories of people who donated kidneys or parts of a liver to a perfect stranger in order to save their lives. We know this even from something as simple as paying taxes. We don't like to pay taxes, at least most of us don't. One of my 4 sons works for the Coast Guard, so anytime I have to pay federal income tax, I always think it's going to a good cause. But no matter how we may begrudge the taxes we pay, we're at least a little bit grateful that the internet was built, in part with tax money, so we and others could meet here in this online worship service. We like that the government maintains the roads, at least some of the roads, some of the time. At least a modest effort has been made to keep the air we are currently breathing clean. The common good, as much as it is funded by people who are of infinite worth. And while we may be shocked to think some of them are of infinite worth, we may also be glad for this internet, these roads, this clean air that sustains us who are of infinite worth in this moment. We are many things, but at least a factor in who we are is the jumble of memories, of traumas that have left us wired for fear, anger, worry, and worry's hyped up cousin, anxiety. Infinite worth and memory of trauma tussle with each other. This is natural and not a so surprising tension. Okay, we are of infinite worth. Would that permit us a moment of deep breath? Maybe relaxation into whatever moment we are living right here, right now. I am of infinite worth, and therefore I have nothing to prove. I am of infinite worth, and therefore I can relax and enjoy a moment of deep breathing. The story goes that there is a sign on the wall at Checkpoint Charlie, the U.S. Army checkpoint that used to be on the Berlin Wall. The sign read, "Relax, you don't want to die all tensed up." It's a great line and a fairly decent story, but I have bad news. I can't authenticate it. I Googled it and I found 3 references to the quote, but I can't find it in reference to Checkpoint Charlie. Someday maybe I will. So here comes the tension. On the one hand, we can all be empowered, our batteries recharged, our emotions set in positive motion by the simple fact of relaxing into our infinite worth. On the other hand, we've all been traumatized. We've all been traumatized into being suspicious, worried, anxious. We all have memories of childhood scolding, or for many of us, much worse, childhood violence. Some of us were bullied on the playground or humiliated by teachers who had some deep psychological wound they picked at because they bore childhood trauma, which was inflicted by the childhood trauma of others. This stuff goes all the way back to ancient times of cruelty and denial of basic infinite worth. It's hard to imagine believing a child is of infinite worth when she is being tongue-lashed, beaten, or sexually assaulted. And we have all experienced something that makes us question our worth. One colleague of mine said, low self-esteem begins with potty training. There you are, a tiny human being doing just what comes natural, and somebody's yelling at you for it. Hardly seems fair. Of course, we are taught from early on that life is not fair. And that is an excuse for putting up with all kinds of injustice. Which brings us back to where we started. How in the world do we do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with whatever we perceive to be ultimate in life? How do we get off the couch, out into the street, and do social action while also doing social distancing? How do we strike up the dance band that will have us living the most effective, satisfied lives? Let me linger here for just a moment, because I want to be clear about what ultimacy is. It is whatever we operate out of. Are you an atheist? If you are, you probably came to that by rejecting the idea of an old man sitting on a throne in the clouds, how that could be of any use. So what is of use? Is it logic? Reason? Accepting the notion that science will eventually be able to explain everything? If so, I honor your path and I wish you well. If you are agnostic, you may have also rejected the old man in the clouds, but the running joke is that you're covering your bets. Agnostics are basically reasonable people who don't want any surprises when they get to the end of their lives. I'm not making fun of agnosticism here. It sounds pretty reasonable to me. My point here is that nobody doesn't have some sense of what is ultimate in life. We all pass experiences through a filter of ultimacy. Maybe your juice comes from a belief in a buffet of influences. You don't wander far in a UU congregation before you find people who like Jesus, Buddha, sometimes Krishna, Hanuman, Pavarti. But they don't want to be called Christian or Buddhist or Hindu. One of the things we hear about the growth of UUism in India is that it appears that both Hindus and Muslims, they want to be together to keep their faith from childhood without having to alienate friends from the other tribe. Take just a moment to consider how energizing and liberating such thinking and believing is in a country where religious affiliation has literally cost people their freedom, their property, and in terrible, terrible cases, their lives. I'm almost to the end. I challenge you to find your filters. How are you processing your desire to do justice? Are you frustrated to think that nothing you do matters? Are you frustrated to the point of powerlessness? How can your filtering of reality lead you to a point where you can accept that you are of infinite worth, infinite value? Once you do accept your own infinite worth, will you begin the journey to find that same value and worth in other people? Of course, it's tough. And it's made tougher for many of us because we have filters that tell us there are certainly people in the world who are not of infinite worth, and we don't want to hang out with that crowd. I used to have a sign hanging in my office that read, "All people are of infinite worth." A cynic saw my sign and said, "Even death row inmates?" And I said, Jesus was a death row inmate for one night. Brian Stevenson, who's a great lawyer and runs the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, says, nobody should be defined by the worst thing they ever did. He adds to that we don't rape rapists and we don't steal from thieves, so why do we murder murderers? He's gotten a lot of people out of death row, and some of whom were wrongly convicted. I recommend him to all of you with all my heart. It may not be our only path, but it is one path. We can begin to do justice, to organize around issues of racial, sexual, LGBTQ, climate change, all points of tension. Once we relax into the energizing truth that we are of infinite worth, value, treasure beyond measure. The next step is to clean those filters that would have us judge others as unworthy. And finally, the third step is to go to work, to write those postcards, letters, emails, social media posts that inspire that more beautiful world we all know is possible. Make phone calls for those of us who still use the telephone. Give money, time, attention, passion to the work for justice that feels the best to us, that makes us come alive. You heard a brilliant sermon from Eric Bannon back in May. He told you, find the justice work that brings you joy. I encourage you to do that. Howard Thurman, one of the guiding lights in the life of M.L. King Jr. and many others, said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what brings you to life, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Don't ask what the world needs. What the world needs is people who have come alive. So ask, what brings you to life? Loving what you do, doing what you love, may just be the formula that strikes up the dance band of social justice. It may also do the all-important work one more time of convincing you you are of infinite worth. I look forward to hearing what you feel and think and do.
Thank you, Pat, for your thought-provoking message. We are grateful for the time you have devoted to preparing this message and for the spirit of your presentation. And now we welcome Mike Alec with some music, a true musical interlude.
Greetings everyone, hope you all had a nice break. This is a song of mine called Burnin' Fuse. I'll leave it all behind you, baby, we gotta roll tonight. Take these chains of yesterday, yeah, keep them out of sight. Somewhere in the dark horizon, past your naked eyes, further than tomorrow, further than these starlit skies. Hey, don't look past your shoulder, the future's slipping by. Ain't no signs between the lines, it's down to do or die. Listen to the raging river, got no time to lose. You know you got no time to wander down to the burning fuse. That's right. All through these flashing cities, the canyons deep and wide, straight across the heartland to the rising mountainside. Keep the wind behind you, there's good sun upon the day, shining down forever, it'll take us all the way. And don't look past your shoulder, the future's slipping by. Ain't no signs between the lines, it's down to do or die. Listen to that raging river, got no time to lose. You know you got no time to wander, time is the burning fuse. Yes it is. Take care.
Thank you, Mike. Your music makes a special and appreciated contribution to our service. And now some announcements. If you are a visitor, welcome. We are so pleased you joined our virtual service. If you like what you've heard so far and are wondering how to stay connected or get involved with our congregation, please reach out to our membership chair, Linda. Her email address can be found at the bottom of the screen. For our members, we appreciate your keeping current on your pledges so that we will be ready to resume our services and other aspects of our church life when life in general returns to normal. Staying connected with each other during these challenging times is important for our well-being. We encourage members to continue reaching out to one another whenever possible. Contacting other members by phone or email can really make a difference during these days of necessary separation, and it certainly enriches the connections we have already fostered. And now, let us all go forth and live our lives with integrity.